now, because I think that there's some people that actually have enjoyed looking at the other one that we recorded. And I said, I don't know, Kristen, I don't know if people are going to actually watch a bunch of people hanging out and knitting. And surprisingly, they did. And one of the folks who was at the in-person meetup 2 Sundays ago said, oh, and I saw my friend Melissa, who I haven't seen her in years. She was so yeah. How are you doing, Teresa? Looks like you've made some really good progress.
Good. Yeah, I'm binding off on the body right now.
Oh, happy hands. Hooray. That's wonderful. How about you, Bev? It's been a little while since I've seen you here.
Yeah, I missed you guys last week. We were on our way to Western New York. My mother turned 95 this past Sunday. And so we went back to where I grew up and treated her royally, had a great time. But I missed my knitting buddies. So Wednesday night, but we were on the road. So it's good to be back. And I meant to send you an email, but I guess you have to hit send. So, well, I have mastered the make ones left and right.
Oh, great.
Which I've never been able to do before. So I'm very excited about that. And I've been practicing the knitted on cast on technique. Is there much of a difference between that and the purled on cast? Because row 9 calls for the knitted on cast on technique. And then row 10, it says to use the purled on.
It's really sort of just a very similar way of, I mean, you can watch it on YouTube, but it's sort of the purl version of what you do with the knitted on one.
Okay, because she has a nice video for the knitted on. I do love her videos. They're wonderful.
Me too. Mm-hmm.
So I'll get to that one. I have to practice on my leftover piece fleece before I can do it on the sweater. So
you're amazing.
I am just so happy at what I've already learned. You know, just having the confidence to keep working at it. But I thought I was the one who had made every mistake possible. So
no, I'm sure I've succeeded you. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that's had.
Not at all. In fact, I cast on and did the setup row so many times that I trimmed it off and started with new yarn because I was afraid I had just worn out what I was using. So
yeah,
but
that I seem to have gotten right. But after that, you know, I started increasing right next to the where you have the purl in the front.
Yes.
And I moved over a stitch. I mean, I've done it all. You've done that too.
Oh, that's why I went to practice with some yarn that isn't the sweater. So, but I mean, I'm very happy. Although I see you announced the next knit along already, and I'm like, ah.
Well, you know, we had so many folks who are so thrilled with this knit along and happy that we're doing it. So we just felt like we wanted to keep up with the momentum. But I think the great news though too is, you know, especially Bev, how you've, you know, really taken this to heart in terms of a learning experience. I just love that so much. And I think the skills that you're really cementing right now are excellent ones that are going to continue to serve you well, whether that's in another Ramona sweater or another sweater period. And I mean, also, and especially this is my background as a librarian and literacy person speaking, but you know, pattern reading is a very specific skill in literacy. Right? It's a different way of thinking. It's a different way of reading. And like I had a pattern here. I'm down visiting my mom and my brother right now because unfortunately we had an unexpected death in the family.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you. And anyway, my brother, who is he's a very talented draftsman and stonescape artist and a business owner. And he's like looking at my pattern and going like, what does this mean? Like, what are all the, I had my, my highlights and everything. And he's like, well, tell me. And then he was looking at my knitting, like, what is this? I mean, this is, yeah, it was. So anyway, I just to say that all of the time that it's taking to, to parse and understand the pattern language. I think it was Sarah who might have said a couple of weeks ago that that's why it's so fun to, once you've knit from one pattern, to knit it again, because all of that brain space that you're spending to understand, what am I doing? And oh, right, this is this part. And oh, that goes away, and you have the roadmap in your mind. Now, could you still veer off course? Of course, right? This doesn't guarantee perfection. But yeah, it's a good, efficient way to think about it.
I like your new sweater.
Oh, thank you.
Looks really nice. Looks great.
I was saying before some of you folks got on, it was me and Judy, and I shared that as you know, I'm knitting, this one is knit in La Pampa, which is pretty chunky. I had to kind of do a little math and monkeying around with my gauge and everything. And La Pampa and Santa Cruz, both in the Juniper Moon family of yarns, feels very sturdy on the skein. And when you're knitting it, in fact, another friend who was knitting hers in La Pampa from in person said, not actually enjoying the knitting part. It's just so rugged. It's very heavy to move. Well, we all know that it blocks beautifully and gets very soft. But what I didn't realize was, so when I tried mine on, and this was before I did the button band, it felt very snug on my bust. And I was like, ooh, I think maybe I need to make a wider button band. And I did. I added about an inch to the button band because it really did feel that tight. Well, then did my button bands and blocked it, and then sewed my buttons on and got it on, and was like, oh wow, through blocking, those stitches relaxed to the point that button band was too wide. So I had to take out my buttons, tear out the button bands, and redo that. But worth it, because I really like the fit now. But
Good.
well, hello there. Welcome to, let's see, Lucy and Mary Ellen, Sarah and Pat. Pat, nice to see you. It's been a couple weeks.
I know. Somehow it just slipped past me last week. Forgot about it until Thursday. And I said, oops. Sorry.
Well, we missed you, but
Thank you. I missed you too.
How's your knitting coming?
I'm finished.
Woohoo!
I thought I sent you a email with my here's my
Beautiful.
sweater.
So nice.
It's the pullover.
Beautiful.
And I've got enough yarn left over to make a couple of fingerless mitts and a cap to go with it.
Ooh,
That's awesome. Good for you.
And I think I still have almost a full skein of yarn left. So it took much less than what I anticipated, which is okay because I got extra things.
well, you've been very
Fantastic.
industrious.
What yarn did you use?
Oh shoot, every time I forget. It was the Mercado,
Oh, it's beautiful.
Barocco Mercado, is that right?
Yep.
And it's, and lupine is the color. So
Oh,
it's
so
kind of a purple.
Beautiful.
Love it.
It fits great, but let me tell you, you were just talking about blocking. My sleeves grew when I blocked. So the next time I block it, I'm going to scrunch them up a little so they're not quite, they fit perfectly before I blocked. And when I blocked, now I've got cuffs. So anyway.
Would it be a good idea that before you do that to like make a swatch and then see how it changes before you do the sleeves?
Like, even if you do a swatch, I think sometimes sleeves can just have that, it stretches vertically. I don't know. What's your, anybody else have experience with that?
Yeah, I didn't. I'm finished and I tried it on unblocked and I didn't want to block it for that very reason, because it fit perfectly through my body and my sleeves were perfect and I didn't want them to really grow. Now it's out in the next room drying, but they grew a little bit, but I don't think, like I tried to be so careful with the sleeves so that they wouldn't grow. And I had to shorten the sleeves because my arms are shorter.
Mhm.
But I think maybe they only might have grown maybe 1 inch. So I think I still might be okay.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm afraid. I was so afraid of that same thing.
I had no idea, no clue that was going to happen. I figured, I laid it out. It looked fine. The measurements looked fine. And son of a gun.
Yeah,
It
because
was,
I tried mine on like maybe 3 different times to measure how much more I had to do on the sleeve so I could get them to be the right.
exactly. Yeah, me too, because my arms are shorter as well. I think there
So
was
am
a
I.
whole repeat that I didn't have to do, or decrease rather.
Yeah, I decreased. Yeah, I made up my own decreases partway through or did them at different intervals
Yeah.
to get it down for a cuff.
Cuffs are tricky, sleeves are tricky, but I think it is true that in a lot of cases you can, as Kristen would say, scoonch it up as you're trying it. But yeah,
I'll try that next time.
Mhm.
That'll be next year, of course.
And then I ordered some Santa Cruz
yeah,
in driftwood that should come tomorrow to make another one
Ooh,
nice.
because I love how this one fits.
Yeah, it fits great. It's a great pattern.
Yeah, and I didn't
And-
have, it's one of the first times I didn't have underarm holes. I
Mm.
don't know why, but I didn't have them this time. I don't know if it's the bulkiness of the yarn or I watched her video and tried to pick them up underneath more carefully.
Mhm. Great, Lucy. And so is your next Ramona going to be a cardigan or pullover?
No, I like the pullover.
The pullover. Okay. Great. I think I'm definitely going to knit a pullover because
Yes,
of
they're
how
great.
fun the pattern was.
Yeah. Yeah, now should I be worried about the Santa Cruz?
No. Oh, it's a dream. It's lovely. It's really lovely. And it's that beautiful organic merino. It's like the younger sibling of this La Pampa. It just really knits up beautifully. And just so you know, it does soften. When you do your swatch and you'll block it, you'll really, it's incredible. I couldn't believe how much it got softer.
Yeah, because I don't want it any bigger than what my Kathmandu one happens to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I had two complete skeins left over and probably a half of another.
Oh my goodness.
Too. So the Kathmandu is a heavier yarn, isn't it?
Just like a smidge. It's really pretty close to the Santa Cruz, actually. Even though the Santa Cruz, they call it worsted, we really consider it to be a heavy worsted / Aran, and that's what Kathmandu is. Aran. Yep. Just a bit heavier than worsted.
I like that Morocco that I used. It was really great to work with.
And I see, let's see, Mary Ellen, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I did the neckline. I took a break from the body and did the neckline, and I followed the video. That was helpful.
Great.
And so now I'm doing the ribbing at the bottom.
Awesome.
So I'm getting there.
Super.
Hold yours up. That's a pretty color.
it is.
Gorgeous.
It's
That's
really
really
it's called
pretty.
blueberry.
What
Blueberry.
yarn is that?
That's Kathmandu.
Okay, it's beautiful.
Thank you. And I tried it on before because I wanted to see the length because I'm short-waisted
Mm-hmm.
and it fits. And that was like the best
Hey.
thing.
Wonderful. Well, that looks gorgeous.
Thank you.
Jill, how are you doing?
I'm doing much better since you helped me.
Great.
And I'm doing the body now, so
Fantastic. It all worked out. That's so
it's
good.
getting better. Yes, I don't know about all worked out, but I'm progressing.
Fantastic. That's all we can hope for in this life, right? Progressing.
Yeah. At least not going backward anyway.
Fantastic. And how about you, Sarah? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm on my second try
Yep.
with the new yarn, which I love. And so I just started my second sleeve.
Oh, great.
Show me that color again.
Yeah,
Put
let's
that
see.
there.
This is it's the osprey. It's actually the same color as in the pattern. It's
Like in the picture of the
Okay.
pattern, right?
Okay.
here. The lighting's probably bad, but
I can't tell if that's blue or in the brown tones.
so it's a heathered gray, but it has a little bit of blue in
It's
it.
beautiful.
Pretty.
So I'm really happy with it because
It's gorgeous.
Mm,
it's something I'll wear all the time. So, but I am going to be really careful blocking. I used to be like an exuberant blocker where I would get things like soaking wet and I'd be kind of like aggressive with it, like wringing it out. And then I learned to be really, really gentle. So I do plan to block it, but I'll do it really like softly and gently. So yeah, and then I'm actually going to lay it out on the mat dry because I like the fit right now, even
mhm.
though I haven't done the button band and I haven't done the collar. But I'm going to lay it out dry and just sort of mark where I want it to stay.
Great.
And then I'll, gently rinse it and dry a little with my towels. And then I'm going to stick it right back in the outline so I know where it has to stay.
Yeah, that's
Good idea.
super.
Did you-
Also, I when you were saying the gentle, when I was writing the blog post about blocking, I think probably the word gently or gentle is in that blog post a lot. And my internal editor was like, is this too much? And I was like, no, it's actually worth repeating.
So is it better to block where you soak the yarn and let it soak for about 20 minutes and then let it wring out? I have a spin cycle in my washing machine. I just put it in there and let it spin out, or using steam.
I don't prefer steam. I feel like I mean, other people may, this is a personal preference. I feel like what I am most comfortable with is more of either a full submerge if I feel like it needs a generous block. And then I'm again just like super gentle, like I'm lifting it out of the water. I put it gently in my colander. It drains a little of the water. I pick it up. It's like a little tiny baby that I'm awkwardly moving around. And but if I feel like something doesn't need quite as much of a full submerge, I will take my spritz bottle, I'll lay it out and I'll give it a good spritz and kind of work from there. I think it still helps to relax. I guess I just never learned the steaming method, but I know some people really feel
I've
comfortable
heard
with
about
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the object of soaking it is to do what to the yarn? Is
So
it
it's
take
just-
sizing out, or
It's helping those fibers to relax. And in a lot of, you'll hear knitters talk about, oh, this yarn blooms so well after it's blocked.
Yes.
Really, if I use the Santa Cruz as an example, what that looked like to me was the yarn on the skein was very, was fairly tight and close. And when it's blocked, there's just a little bit more of kind of a light halo that's lifted as those fibers have, through the soaking then drying process, they kind of fluff up a little bit, if that makes sense. And
kind of like felting, but not felting, not that severe. So that it locks all your stitches in place and all your weave ins. And
yep. And the the yarn that I would say I've heard the most about how beautifully it looks afterwards is the Kathmandu, is one that because it has a bit of that tweedy texture and that a little bit of a thick and thin texture. Some folks who've been knitting with it are like, oh, it just kind of looks uneven. And I said, just give yourself some time with it, let it block, and it's gonna, the little spaces or irregularities will just kind of settle out a little bit, if that makes sense. Did that answer your question?
Yes, beautifully.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
think blocking also helps a little bit with shaping, because sometimes you have edges that just want to keep rolling over. And when you block it flat, you're telling the yarn, this is the direction, this is how I want you to lay. And it will take it. It's like a perm or straightening it out or something, it will, the wool will take your direction of what you want it to do. But I didn't, no one ever like taught me how to block. Like no one like brought me into their laundry room or kitchen and showed me. So when I was a younger knitter, I never did it. I had a lot of like rolling up edges and stuff that didn't lay quite right. And then the first time that I did it the same way I like scrub dishes or my table, which is like very vigorously. And I remember like squeezing and wringing all the water out of it. And I had sleeves that went from fitting me to being like that long, And so I had to redo it, and I had to learn how to be gentle. So I still don't know if I'm a model for how I do it now. And I've used the spray bottle technique before too, when I didn't want to like have that much water in it. I've just sprayed it flat with water, and that worked for me too. Erez, are you still there?
Hi, I am, but I
Okay.
think my internet connection is a little bit unstable. I'm
Oh, no.
I'm not at home, and so it's a little different than my usual spot. So I'm back, but it seemed like everybody sallied forth. I got kicked out for a minute, but I turned my camera off because that might conserve my bandwidth.
Oh, because you're just a goat.
I'm just a goat. I'm gonna stay a goat for a little while. You'll have to picture me over here.
I'm also going to step out for 5 minutes. I have to get my son set up with a class that he takes on the computer. So I'll be right back.
Sounds great. Okay. So I am working on my shift because getting ready for the next knit along, I wanted to get a little head start and maybe get some ideas for how best to help folks. And but it's a really great pattern, and I hope some of you folks maybe want to jump in on that with us.
What is the shift?
Let me hold up the pad. Did you see the email this morning, Pat?
I did.
Okay.
Is it like a collar? I mean, you wear it around your neck?
Yep, it's a cowl, and I'm just
Cowl.
gonna let me just see. I've got a real quick. I'm gonna get to the end of my row, and then I'll hold it up. I'll turn on my camera and hold it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's just such a lovely technique because it's using slip stitch knitting to create this fun and beautiful, colorful. It's a great stash buster project if you have yarn in the weight, but it's just so fun, and it's not true, stranded knitting.
Ooh.
It is truly a slip stitch knit type of technique, and then you're also creating a really beautiful little I-cord edge as you go that will be along the top collar of the cowl. And It's fun because you can knit it in a couple different weights. So here's the picture, which you probably saw in the email, and the original pattern calls for a sport weight. And the one that I'm knitting right now and the one that we have in the shop as a sample are both knit in fingering weight. So, you know, fingering weight, so fun with sock yarns, with sort of, you know, the original one here is using spin cycle yarns, which is that like barber pole kind of hand dyed technique. And it can be such a nice way to showcase really special small skeins or little bits of skeins that you might have. And then likewise, we've created a couple of collections through the shop to give folks ideas. So my first one here is a little bit reminiscent of the one we do have in the shop. And I think it's a very restful pattern. It's kind of a fun, pretty easy one to memorize. I mean, I'm still referring to my pattern, but conceptually it was an easy concept to get. And like, there's little nuances in the different sections, but I think it will be a good one for folks. I hope.
Looks interesting.
It does.
So it's not stranded knitting,
No,
but it's the effect, the look is like stranded.
exactly right. Yeah. And so in a nice way, sort of accessible, especially for folks who've never done 2-color knitting, and kind of want to have something 2-color. And the thing that's really, to me, also fun is like, I think of a cowl as one of those staples. I wear it all year. You got one right on, Pat. You know, I was saying to my son, you know, so we're thinking of another type wardrobe staple type project for our next knit along. And he's like, wait, let me guess. It's going to be something that goes around your neck, right? Yeah, he knows me. So anyway, and it's just, I think it will be a shorter project too. And I could see people getting into like just having fun and going and making a couple of these things. So we'll see if people are into it.
Cool.
Bev, I think when you were in the shop, you and Rick were checking out the shift cowl, if I remember correctly.
Very much so.
Uh-huh.
In fact, I think I bought yarn for it already.
Oh, well, there you go. Just sign right up for the knit along then.
I will, just because, and I just enjoy these sessions so much.
Great. We love it. It'll be fun to have you.
One of the things that I learned when I knit my shift, I used the yarn that Andrea Mary calls for. It's
Spin cycle.
Yeah, spin cycle. And she doesn't say this in the pattern or anywhere, but the spin cycle yarns, they're really, really beautiful, but they tend to go from a darker color to a lighter color. And I made the terrible mistake of having both of my different colors. I wound them from light to dark instead of in reverse, because the pattern looks terrible if both of your skeins are from light to dark or dark to light. You want one to go from light to dark and you want the other skein to go dark to light so that you have continual contrast. Mine started out looking beautiful and then it looked like absolute crap. And I waited till I got to the end. I kept thinking, oh, there's going to be more variation. Oh, there's going to be, and I ended up taking the whole thing out. And then I learned that this is the worst pattern on earth to take out. You can't just take it out. Like I literally had to take out every single stitch and I got so frustrated. It was taking me longer to take it out than it did to knit it.
Oh.
That I have it in like some bag of shame hidden somewhere in my knitting cabinet. And so, yeah.
And Sarah, did you use all 3 spin cycle yarns or?
I did. I followed the instructions like to a T.
Okay.
In fact, let me just see if I can find some of my like Ravelry pictures of the finished product. I'll try to show you. Let me see. But yeah, and it's such a simple thing.
But she doesn't mention it.
Someone
Yeah.
should have said that in the pattern.
Hmm.
But no one did.
Well, what
So-
we've also in the shop, there's the shop sample that we have. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Has like 5 colors, which is really interesting and looks really, really good with 5. And the original pattern calls for 3. Sorry.
Bless you.
Oh, look
Wait,
at
it's
that.
not.
Hmm. Oh,
So
I see what you
see,
mean.
the skeins should have been reversed.
mm.
I should have had some of the lighter colors up here and some of these darker ones down there.
Yeah.
Sure looks pretty though.
It looked terrible on.
But the design looks pretty. The style looks pretty.
Yeah.
So it's
So-
plenty generous.
I liked the top. I didn't like the bottom. These were the skeins that I had chosen.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
It was yeah, I didn't do a good job.
And we have a couple of I mean, I think that interesting, like that barber pole style of spinning and dyeing that the spin cycle is known for. We have a couple of yarns in the shop that fall into that category, but I think Kristen and Miranda and me might get together for a little color sort of brainstorming about colors for this, because I think it
Advice.
can feel a little daunting. And I think, Sarah, that would be a great, if I will share that gem of wisdom on your behalf, if that's okay, because
Oh,
think
yeah, please do. In fact, I think I wrote it on my Ravelry page where I did the shift.
because I think it does call for kind of a high contrast, and
Yeah.
it'll be really interesting and fun to see where people go with their colors, because I've seen it. There's a beautiful one that Kristen's husband actually has that's knit in really like earth tones, and it looks really, really beautiful in that as well.
Yeah,
But I
so
think you're right on about the high
Yeah.
contrast, Sarah.
I said I made the mistake of pulling these yarns from the dark side first, resulting in an odd looking super bright streak in the middle of the cowl where everything went light and I lost all the contrast.
Mm.
Yeah.
Be nervous now.
But yeah, if someone helps you with colors or helps you wind them, you will have no problem. I think it's something that may have been intuitive to the test knitters, but there were a handful of other people who did this who are like,
So these
tried
yarns
that.
are like variegated. The yarns are the ones that change colors as you go through. And you just
Yeah,
have to be
and-
careful.
Well, and so in mine, I really wanted to play with a dark background, some sort of color changing color as my second color, and then a semi-solid for my third. So I'll just hold up what I chose. So I chose this is Machida, and it's a really dark, I think it's Azul Profundo or something like that. So it's a very dark, rich indigo navy. I chose a very sort of, it's a little more green maybe than you're seeing, but it's On the Round, one of On the Round's colors. Again, this is her nimble sock because I went with the fingering weight. And then I also chose a Machida in this fun, I think this was Anniversario. Sorry, there it is. So very sort of colorful purples, greens, blues, a little yellow. But I think you could also go with solids. I think it looks really good with solids. And, if you're not feeling brave with a color changing type of yarn, solids will be just as interesting.
Yeah, if you're on Ravelry, you can see the colors that other knitters chose. And I have to admit, there are some really, really nice looking ones that do use solids, or that use maybe 1 or 2 skeins that have the variation and then a solid throughout. And so their projects turned out maybe a little more predictable, I guess I would say, than mine did. So
Redo yours?
am I going to redo it?
Yeah,
No.
no.
No,
Once
it's
was
like
enough.
$100 of like my yarn of shame. The way that this pattern is knit, it's very challenging to frog because I literally have to pick it out stitch by stitch. And so there's like the frugal part of my nature where I'm like, I have to take these apart and use them for something else. And then I'm like, oh, my time is worth more than this, you know. But
I went, it's funny that you say that because I actually started mine on a size 3 needle, which was way too small. I went up to a 5, which I like much better. And so I took out like, my first sort of sections 1 and 2, and I didn't find it too challenging. I guess for me, I just kept my balls kind of separate. And so one was on one side, the other was on the other side. And I would just sort of go like, take one color back and forth. Cause again, you're only ever using one color at a time. And then to take the other one and then take a little, it wasn't too bad, but on the other hand, yeah, you were dealing with a whole cowl's worth. I was dealing with like 6 inches worth.
yeah, and it had also been blocked.
Mm.
So
Oh.
everything was like entangled and,
Oh,
set
goodness.
in place. And yeah, I've had no trouble. Normally if I frog something, it's like so fast and satisfying, right? And I'm shocked, like when you have that little pile with all the little curls in it, like at my feet or something, I'm like, wow, that took me so long to go in the other direction. And so quickly, so easily it came undone. That wasn't the case with this one.
Well, I think we already almost have 30 people signed up, which is kind of exciting on day 1 of opening the signups.
Wow.
I tried to sign up, but I wasn't able to.
Oh, yeah, I can. Do you want me to add you, Mary Ellen?
Yes.
Okay. It's a funny thing. Remember we had a little bit of a hiccup with our old email and we had to migrate over, and the new email system is worlds better in many, many ways, but they don't have the same type of sign up capability. So the sign up has to sort of be created as a pop-up on one page. And depending on when you tried it, like if you, anyway, so most people have been successful, but there have been a few people where maybe the pop-up doesn't show and
Yeah, I
then
didn't
they
get the
refresh the
pop-up.
page. And anyway, so I'm happy to add you, Mary Ellen,
Okay.
manually, and you'll get the
Okay.
welcome email and all of that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I found that I specifically wasn't getting the pop-up when I was using Firefox. I tried it on multiple devices with Firefox, and then I tried a different browser and I got it.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
interesting.
That's
good
good to know.
Okay. And I'm also continuing to nudge the new email company with like, hey, you're this is a feature that actually would be really important to us. And for that, that's a perfect little tidbit, Teresa. So you were using Firefox and it wouldn't work?
Yeah. I had to try a different browser and suddenly there the pop-up was.
Oh man. Anyway,
Would
technology.
you go ahead and add me to the next one too, please?
Sure will, Pat. Yeah.
Thank you. That way I don't have to
monkey with it.
figure that out. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I am in Western Massachusetts right now with my family, and we were in Northampton, which is home of Webb's, gigantic Webb's. And when I was growing up in this area, Webb's was a tiny little shop that was in a Victorian house in Amherst, Mass. And now they have this massive online presence and a huge warehouse. But the other yarn store in Northampton that I always loved to go to was Northampton Wools, and they were sadly closed. Like they're not open on like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And I was there on a Tuesday and I But I did, you know, smush my face up against the glass and tried to get a look of what was going on in there.
The French have a term that I love called lèche vitrine. It means like window licking, like when you're just, you know, walking down, you know, sort of looking in the windows, almost like drooling, like, oh my God, that looks, you know. But
Pretty
yeah,
much
I love that.
exactly describes what I was doing, Sarah. That's a perfect term to know.
I'm a Smithy. Did you know that?
I did not.
So I love downtown Northampton.
Yeah, it's really fun. And as my mom and I were walking around going down memory lane, I was like, I really feel like an older person now, because I'm like, and this used to be there, and what, wait, well, that's gone now. And of course the pandemic was so hard on a lot of the local businesses, but you'll be glad to know, Sarah, that Thorne's Marketplace is still there, and there's still some really lovely old standbys there, and a bookstore. So
Yeah, I'll have to take a trip down memory lane sometime soon.
yes.
Maybe combine it with a trip to Webb's.
Oh yeah. Yep. Tracy, who works in the shop, was at Webb's a couple of weeks ago. She was in the area for a wedding, a family wedding. And she was so interested. She went with a very, you know, she had a list of things she wanted to check out, and, you know, things, and her feedback was she felt like they didn't have great displays in the shop. You know, their warehouse is great, but the shop almost was like, she described it as a little hard to, I don't know, really see and appreciate the yarn, because it was kind of more in like shelving as opposed to, you know, more open or just anyway, I was just, it's always, you know, yarn tourists, right? That's what we are. Love to
Could have a
the
yarn
stores.
wall.
Exactly.
When I lived in Texas and I was learning to quilt, the quilt shops would have a weekend where they would each quilt shop had, I forget how many people, but it filled a bus. So everybody had a bus, and there was about 13 different shops, and then you moved to the next shop on your bus. It was fabulous. Should do that for yarn.
In the summer, we have the yarn cruise. I mean, we have our like actually on the boat ones, but we also have the like all the different yarn stores in Maine. But it's sort of through the summer, it's longer, you know, it's not, because we're so geographically spread out everywhere. But I like that idea of the quilters on rampage, you know, like,
yes, that was exactly right. And you come back with your victory bag filled with all kinds of goodies and plans for the future. And
yep,
it was fun.
no, that's great. Okay, now I need to untangle, just, you know, get my little tangles untangled.
Yeah, my mother-in-law Susan finished her Ramona cardigan. So it's so cute. It's a beautiful like heathered purple. She used the Kathmandu. I don't know the name of her color, but it's like this pretty sort of amethyst heathered purple color, and she's very easy to shop for because everything is purple for her. It's her special color. But it was so cute to see her wearing it last Sunday. So.
Where is she tonight?
I don't know. It's so funny because we were texting earlier. And I don't know what she's up to.
Probably did what I did last week. I just forgot. I planned all day, and then the evening went by and I totally missed it.
It happens, right? Hopefully you were doing something fun.
I don't even remember now.
But yeah, she already got yarn to do a second one. And I think instead of the cardigan, I think she's going to do the pullover next. So that's exciting. So she'll still be knitting a Ramona.
Is it possible to do a pullover with a lighter weight yarn, maybe a fingering weight?
So when we had the Zoom with Elizabeth, she did allude to the fact that she was maybe working on a lightweight pullover, but
Okay.
that to my knowledge, that pattern has not been released yet.
Okay. Have to watch for that.
Maybe
Mhm.
I love the way this
an
went
encouragement
together.
her
It was
way.
really easy and it's beautiful. It just turned out so beautiful.
She's very responsive to emails. She's super kind. So I'm sure she would be, yeah, as Lucy said, receptive to a little nudge.
Oh, well, then maybe I'll do that tomorrow.
Like I really love my Ramona in the Aran weight, but I would love to be able to do one in the light fingering because I really do love my Ramona.
Yes,
Mhm.
because you can layer it then over a shirt or something, you know?
Sure.
And my heavy duty one was really perfect. We had semi-warmish weather down here today, like 50-ish, and I had it on and just a vest on top, and it was perfect.
So how many knit-alongs do you do during the year?
We've never done any. Like this,
Okay.
Ramona was our first one, and when I was talking with Kristen in the fall, and I was kind of newly hired, and she was sharing some of the some of the things that might be helpful for me to work on with her. Events was one of them, and I was like, what about the Ramona? And so we kind of went back and forth, and it was her brilliant idea to like, let's do all three, let's offer all three, let's be as inclusive as we can be, which is, I think, such a nice way to approach a knit along as a store. There's a lot of stores where it's a little more restrictive. Oh, you have to know these things to join, and you have to be able to do X, Y, or Z. And I think both of us were very much on the same page about wanting to try to do something that would appeal to lots of levels. And so that was fun. And so this will be our second knit along with the KAL. We'll see how that goes.
So how many people did you have do you have in the Ramona?
I think that the signups were almost 150, which was
Wow.
no idea. And I mean, there was
Wow.
somebody from France, and again, did all of these people, certainly we haven't had that many on Zoom, but definitely had some folks who signed up, bought yarn, and whether or not they actually knit along with us, we don't know, but continued to get the emails. Like, we didn't have a lot of like unsubscribes, so
Good.
seems
Good.
yeah, seems good.
And you already have 50 for the second one?
I think 30 when I looked
30, okay.
earlier. Yeah, so we'll see. Somebody on Facebook said, "Oh, I've already knit 4 of these," and a friend of hers maybe responded and said, "Well, are you up for a 5th? If you do it, I will."
Yeah. Oh, very cool.
Aw.
So is this new one something that you would encourage us to look into our stash, or is it better if we get some fresh yarn from you all?
Well, I mean, I think that this pattern really does lend itself to, if you've got some cool, let's say a single skein of a beautiful sock weight yarn, fingering yarn, or a sport weight yarn that you're like, ooh, yeah, either one of those weights would be great. And if you've got something kicking around the stash that's kind of like special and you haven't quite know what to do with it, you could very easily take that and build your shift around it. To and maybe you've got 3 great skeins in your stash. I mean, again, we're not going to turn anybody away if they want to knit down the stash, because that's all good. And if you need accents, or you want to just sort of browse what we've got, great. But yeah, and even like little bits of yarn could be used in an interesting way. I think there's a lot of room for some creativity.
So is the pattern available now to purchase, or?
You can purchase it on Ravelry, or if you need
Okay.
help with that, we can certainly help you, but I linked it right in the email.
Okay, I'll
And
read it
I
again.
I will actually, maybe while we're still chatting, I can add Mary Ellen and Pat to the knit along. So you'll get another email that's like, welcome to the knit along, and then
Okay.
you'll, yeah,
With all the details.
Thank
Thank
all the
you.
details.
Thank you.
Kit Kat. You're right in my way. You're right in my way. Yeah.
I am also a quilter, and it seems like everybody now in January does these things where you list 12 projects you need to finish, and you finish one a month. And some have incentives. I think I'm gonna need one for knitting too.
They have in quilting, they have those block of the month.
Yes.
You know, every month you build a new block, and by the end of the year, you've got a full quilt. We need to do something like that for an ensemble in knitting, or, you know, socks and towels and mittens and hats, and keep us busy.
Okay, you, Mary Ellen and Pat, you should be getting that shortly.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have some leftover yarn. So I'm excited to either, you know, make like a matching hat or some other accoutrement to go with my Ramona. So I don't know how much I'll have left, but I told myself if it was a hat, I would at least do the band and then like a pom-pom in the same color, but then maybe different colors in the middle. Or I don't know, like a little sort of neck warmer or cowl to make it extra warm if I feel like I want a turtleneck. So I don't know how much I'm gonna have left over, but I'm excited to do that too.
Well, Sarah, you know, I'm just thinking, I love the rib on the bottom of the Ramona so much. I wonder, that could be kind of a cool cowl pattern.
Yeah, I love the ribbing so much that I made the sleeve cuffs in the same pattern. I wanted to carry it over.
Nice idea.
It wasn't mine. There was another knitter who had done that, and I was like, yes, I'm copying that idea.
Well, artists inspire other artists, right?
Mhm.
Okay. But yeah, it is really nice for such a sort of classic raglan style to have those little extra touches. Like I really like the band that goes down the side. It's just, I mean, it's very simple, but it's just a really nice sort of little extra touch to have.
I think a couple weeks ago, Sarah, I remember you saying, you know, some people say simple, I say elegant. And I think there is some beautiful simplicity in this pattern as having those, exactly like you say, little touches that just kind of
Custom.
elevate it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't wait to be finished with my sleeves. I don't know why.
They just seem to go and go. And then there's the other one.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm definitely like making progress on my sleeves. It's an awful lot of just like repeating the same thing over and over. And I'm just so eager to get to like the collar and the button band. So
Yep, I hear you.
Do you all use counters as you're going through the different segments for keeping track of how many repeats that you've done per how the pattern goes?
Yeah, I like a counter.
Used
I
to
usually write
use- Go ahead.
I usually write a chart for myself, or sometimes I use those.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I just usually write numbers on a piece of paper and then I'll use like a paper clip or something to mark where I am.
I use sticky notes, and to follow my pattern, I'll move a sticky note along. And if I'm having to do any counting, I do the counting on the sticky note. But I have an iPhone and I found an app
I have one too.
Oh, good.
for my iPhone that was free. And if you needed more features, you could buy the one. It's, let's see if I can show you what okay, I'm gonna hold my phone up. It's this little pink, there's a little pink, can you see that? A little pink
Okay.
circle with a cat stopwatch
Yeah,
on it.
I have
That's
the
the
same
icon
one.
you're looking
Yeah.
for.
I have the same one.
I love it.
I do too, because I like it that it divides up projects. So you can
Yes,
you can have several projects on the same time and be counting
Exactly.
different projects.
yep, and you can count your repeats, and when you get to a certain place, if it repeats 7 times and then you have to do that repeat 5 times, it counts that repeat so that you know where you are and how many more times you have to repeat that segment. So I like that. It's simple,
Yeah,
but it's
very
effective.
easy. It's very easy to use, and it's very easy to finish when you're finished with the
Yeah,
project.
because you just tap it.
Right.
If you need to use it, you just tap it and it counts for
What-
you.
What's it called?
Um,
Just
good
called,
question.
I think
Let's
it's just
see.
called
It's-
knitting counter.
It just says counter, and it's pink. It's a hot pink with a
This-
stopwatch icon.
Yeah, that I
middle.
saw.
So
Okay,
when
so
you
this-
go to knitting counters on
okay,
On your app store.
in your app
Yeah.
store, look for
Okay.
that.
yeah, that's fine, because it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, it's
And
easy.
okay, yeah, anything to help.
And
Yes.
the shift knit along also, I would say counting, having some sort of counter, whether that's your Post-it or your app or a knitting counter, whatever, also good, because there's definitely a lot of places each segment has you do these 8 rows and then you're gonna repeat rows 1 through 4 and then repeat rows 1 through 8 one more time, or something like that. So it'll be nice for you to, whatever means you have to keep track, it could be a good one to have for the next one.
Plus with this one, as long as it's open and active, as long as it's open,
Yep.
it won't, the phone doesn't close down.
Ooh,
It
that's cool.
stays active, it doesn't time out, I guess. is the
Love
word.
that.
So as long
That's
as you've got it up and
Yep.
active and you're using it, it won't time out.
Gotcha.
What I like to do, like when I'm in this section where you have to do row 1 and row 2, and then that's you count that as one turn.
Yes,
I like to use my tape, my highlight
yes,
tape, so I know which row I'm on.
yes, that's a
Don't
good
mess
idea
up that
too.
way. Yeah,
That's what I use those sticky notes for too, so I
Yeah,
can
this-
move them along,
except my cat likes to knock them off.
I have cat help too.
He hasn't gotten to learn how to get the yellow highlighter tabs off yet.
And hopefully he doesn't know how to mess with your counting app either.
No, but he knows how to mess with yarn. When he was a kid,
Oh,
he got into my yarn first thing, and he's sneaky. I didn't know, and I was knitting, and all of a sudden I felt this big tug because he was running with the ball of yarn into the other room. It was all over the house.
Oh, no.
So now my yarn goes in Ziploc bags, which I don't like, but that's the easiest way to keep him out of them.
You do what you have to do.
yes.
That's
He loves
funny.
yarn.
Well, it's just about 6,
Aw.
but it's always fun to see all of your faces.
Was
And
fun. Thank you.
glad to have some of you folks back who weren't with us last week too.
Good to be back. I have to say, this is the fastest hour of the week.
I wanted to ask you guys, sometimes I really enjoy reading books about knitting, and this new book came up called Unraveling by Peggy Orenstein. Has anybody read that?
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
I can get it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What I
Hey.
learned, can you read the subtitle?
Yes, I have to take my glasses off to read that. Okay, what I learned about life while shearing sheep, dyeing wool, and making the world's ugliest sweater. Apparently she has this great sense of humor, and it's about kind of her relationships with, I guess, her mom and her teenage daughter. But during the pandemic, she kind of, I don't know, got bored and decided she was going to find out what it took to make a sweater essentially from scratch, like shearing sheep and dyeing it herself, and like the whole process from start to finish. She just decided she was going to learn the whole darn thing. but
Great.
it's sort of humorous and also tied to her relationships, because I guess it was her mother who taught her how to knit. But I put it on my wish list, and it's new. Like, I think it just came out.
Yeah,
So I was
it's
just
what it looks like,
wondering-
yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering if anyone else had read it yet. It has good reviews.
Oh,
No, but I'm going
Once
to
you
add
get
it to
into it, let us
my
know.
Goodreads list as well. Thanks for that. I also like reading about yarn and knitting too. And Clara Parks is one of those writers who I feel like has such a great writer's voice. She really knows what she's talking about. And her book, Vanishing Fleece, really delved deep into sort of the wool industry. And
Yeah.
I found that enjoyable too. But this is great. I've made a few notes here, and maybe in our next Ramona, I'll give a little like some of the highlights of our Zoom this week, because from the app to the Bev had a great quote, fastest hour of the week, to the book recommendation. These are some good little nuggets.
Don't
It's
forget
a great
KAL.
little group.
It is. It's fun. You're great people. You really are.
I agree.
I got 2 sleeve repeats done. Thank you, ladies.
Fantastic. Good. All right. Well, listen, we'll see each other next Wednesday.
All right, have a good week, everybody.
Sounds good.
Yes.
You
You
take
too.
care.
KAL.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you, Iris.
Thank you.